Marco Rubio shouldn't have been there. The president's advisor on all things foreign, showing up unexpectedly at a meeting on domestic threats.
By the way, we have Marco Rubio. Marco, come on up here, please.
But in he walks, well over an hour into this roundtable meeting, Trump inviting him to take a seat.
Come on up here, Marco. Anything we should know about the Middle East?
That's what we're hoping to talk to you about here, Mr. President.
Rubio basically saying, we need to talk. He grabs a notepad, scribbles something down, and 90 seconds later, he passes Trump the message. Trump spends the next 15 seconds or so considering what's written on the note, which an Associated Press photographer would manage to catch on camera. Underlined for emphasis, the words, very close. Then an urgent demand. We need you to approve a Truth Social post soon so you can announce the deal first.
I was just given a note by the Secretary of State saying that we're very close to a deal in the Middle East, and they're going to need me pretty quickly, so I will take a couple of more questions.
Just a couple of hours later, the Trump-approved post is published.
President Trump has just announced that Israel and Hamas have agreed to the first phase of a peace plan.
This means that all of the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed-upon line.
So that was the moment the world would learn. Hostages of the deadly October 7th attack might very soon be set free. But now let me show you the moment that made that possible in the first place. On September 9th, so exactly 1 month ago to the day as I record this, Israel would launch a brazen attack on a friend of the United States.
We are getting reports of explosions in Doha.
Israel has launched a strike targeting Hamas leadership in Qatar.
This was a surprise strike on a country Israel had never before attacked. How could it dare? Qatar has been one of the principal mediators in the war between Israel and Hamas, helped broker not one, but two ceasefires.
What they would say is they're trying to operate somewhat like the Switzerland of the Middle East. They're trying to remain as neutral as possible, have as many relationships as possible with Israel, with Tehran.
And in fact, Qatar, at the exact moment of the attack, was playing host to talks led by the U.S. to secure the release of hostages from Gaza. But then, 10 missiles launched from Israeli fighter jets would target a residential compound in the country's capital. The IDF believed Hamas negotiators would be there at the time, and they wouldn't see an attack coming.
It was incredibly brazen. It was an attempt to kill Hamas's entire negotiating team while they were discussing President Trump's ceasefire proposal in a country that's one of two major mediators. To have an airstrike like that in a Gulf country, it was shocking and unprecedented.
But the attack would fail in two important ways. The first was that Israel missed. They weren't able to kill the Hamas leadership that they were targeting. And in fact, they'd inadvertently killed a Qatari citizen in the strike. But the second failure was personal.
It really angered the United States, right? It made the United States look bad. It made Donald Trump, I think, personally feel somewhat humiliated that this state that was close to him attacks this other friendly state without telling the U.S. or asking the U.S. ahead of time if that's okay. It was embarrassing to the U.S. and to Trump personally that this attack happened at all.
And so it began. Trump blindsided and therefore angered. But now with new leverage, Israel had crossed a red line, and in doing so would create an entirely new pressure on itself.
We understand that Netanyahu essentially had no choice but to go along with this and to send negotiators to Egypt and essentially to go along with this entire process. So in many ways, President Trump's enthusiasm and optimism has willed this process into existence.
Within just a matter of days, virtually the entire Middle East would begin galvanizing against Israel, worried it was going too far.
You immediately saw Arab and Gulf leaders flocking to Qatar to express solidarity.
I think it completely pissed them off. They found it totally unacceptable. It made them question their fundamental assumptions about Israel being a useful partner.
And behind the scenes, Qatar, whose own safety and sovereignty had been violated, it wanted guarantees that an attack like this wouldn't happen again. That would eventually come in three ways.
Signing an executive order, Trump says any armed attack on Qatar will be considered a threat to the peace and security of the U.S.
The first was a guarantee straight from the desk of President Trump himself, assuring the security of the state of Qatar. Any future attack on them would be considered an attack on the United States. But the second outcome was that Trump would make a direct and personal appeal to Benjamin Netanyahu himself, telling him, now you have to say you're sorry.
I said to the Prime Minister of Qatar, Israel was targeting terrorists, wasn't targeting Qatar. And of course, we regretted the loss of the Qatari citizen, wasn't our target.
But even that wouldn't ultimately be enough, because the third event, Israel's attack, would set into motion. And what Trump's advisors ultimately saw here was a very narrow window of opportunity in which to present Israel with an offer it couldn't refuse.
The whole deal, everything getting solved. It's called peace in the Middle East.
Trump's so-called 20-point peace plan, the one proposed just a week ago, covering hostage and prisoner exchanges, covering the delivery of aid, covering the eventual governance of Gaza, its redevelopment, security guarantees, the list goes on. Israel helped write this, but may also have felt compelled to.
Netanyahu had nowhere else to go. He is not popular in the Democratic Party in America. He is not popular in Europe, and the whole of the Middle East, other than Israel's most virulent enemies, were in favor of this agreement. So if he was to not agree with the president's plan, it would have completely isolated Israel at a time when countries are refusing to sell it weapons.
If Israel felt the heat of this agreement, Hamas likely felt it more.
If Hamas rejects the deal, maybe you'd have our full backing to do what you would have to do.
If Hamas rejects your plan, Mr. President, then Israel will finish the job.
Clearly, this wasn't so much of a peace proposal as it was a peace threat. Submit to these terms or else. And every passing day of this war has made Hamas less and less likely to refuse. Its leadership has been decapitated many times over, its infrastructure decimated, and with it, Hamas's ability to maneuver, to hide, to resupply, to mount surprise attacks. Its allies, too, have been crippled, whether through pager bombs targeting members of Hezbollah, airstrikes against Houthis several borders away, or by bringing in the biggest bombs there are, American planes striking at the heart of Iran's major nuclear facilities.
Hamas is basically destroyed. Think about this has been 2 years of just massive, massive destruction of their military capacity, of their leadership.
And so we arrive at today.
What we're waiting for is this vote on the first phase of the deal. And so once that comes through, that basically means the ceasefire has begun. And that starts this 72-hour period where the hostages should be released in that time.
It's true, undeniably true, that Hamas's acceptance of this part of Trump's peace plan is a major milestone pointing to the end of a now 2-year war in Gaza. But equally important is recognizing that this is only the beginning, because this isn't the first time there's been hope in the Middle East. There are key points of disagreement still. For example, Hamas has shown no willingness to disarm, as the plan requires. And it has no real guarantee that even if it does release all its hostages, as it says it will, that the whole thing wouldn't then just collapse for some other reason, as we've seen happen before, and which could then vault the two sides back into all-out war.